Welcome to the Career Advancement webinar. And this event is organized by BD+C, emerging professionals and students of ibpsa-usa. It is a group for professionals who have less than 5 years of experience in the building performance industry and want to explore more about the field, discuss research and work practices, and want to connect to the peers and mentors in the same industry. So before we actually dive into the webinar, if you want to be a part of BD+C, please visit the ibpsa-usa website or send us an email on bpc@ibpsa.us. So not wasting any more of the time, let's dive right into it. Today, we will be talking about all about how to prepare for resume and interviews if you're applying for or changing jobs. What all credentials can you go for? And how to network and communicate with building performance professionals. And today we have three panelists, Supriya Goel from PNNL, Fred Betz from Affiliated Engineering, and Ajit Naik from Baumann Consulting to give us their expert advice on the same. All of them have been here for quite a number of years. So thank you, Supriya, Ajit, and Fred for joining us today. Why don't we start with some introductions first? Fred, do you want to go first?
Sure, thanks. I'm Fred Betz, building performance consultant with AEI in Madison, Wisconsin for the last 13 years. 5 of those years, I was the building performance department head, which included a lot of resume review and hiring of new full-time staff and interns. And I think that's probably the most important pertinent stuff for today. Thanks.
Thank you. Supriya?
Yeah, hi everyone. I am Supriya Goel. I'm a senior research engineer at Pacific Northwest National Lab. I've been with the lab since 2011, so coming over 10 years now. When I joined the lab, I was on their Richland campus, which is a small town in Eastern Washington, and I felt really cut off from our simulation community. To kind of remediate that, I decided to start the ibpsa-usa Seattle chapter, which was my introduction into ibpsa-usa. That kind of led to me kind of co-chairing a group within the research committee in ibpsa-usa, to my current position as ibpsa-usa's vice president, and also introduced me to several ASHRAE committees, and I also chair an ASHRAE committee standard currently. All of these connections have helped me in several ways, not just in developing a network and a group of folks I can rely on for anything related to career help, but also exposing me to a bunch of different aspects of our work, which is also really helpful. So I'm looking forward to telling you all about how to build those relations and how you can benefit from the same.
Thank you, Supriya. I'm sure we are going to learn a lot today. So Ajit.
Thank you, Jayati. Hi all, I'm Ajit Naik. I'm a senior energy and commissioning engineer with Baumann Consulting. I've been with Baumann for about 4 years now and been in the industry for about 10. I serve as the on the board of the ibpsa-usa Chicago chapter, so organizing local events and meetups and generally fostering some connection between the local simulation community. So like Fred, work directly with the hiring process and interview process at our firm. So really looking forward to sharing our thoughts with you all today. Thank you for the opportunity.
Amazing. So I'm glad to have you all here and can't wait to hear all your opinions and interesting insights for all the emerging professionals attending today's session. But before we actually dive in, we have Apurva Pradhan, the co-chair of BD+C, to give you all some quick interesting facts about building performance industry. So Apurva, what do you have for us?
Yes, hi. Let me start by sharing my screen.
Go ahead.
Can you all see my screen?
Awesome.
Awesome. So I'm briefly going to talk about the different career pathways that we can take in the BIM industry. So BIM can be used for multiple purposes, including building level as well as broader scope analysis. Now, all of us are aware of the building level uses like modeling for architecture design and HVAC design operations, which includes either new building analysis or existing building improvements. BIM can also be useful for doing post-occupancy verifications, Another commonly known type of analysis is the third-party building certifications like LEED or code compliance, incentives, and rebates. Because energy modeling can be conducted in different projects, there's a range of career pathways engaged in energy modeling. Now, the energy modeling team and scope can depend on the firm. You could be like an in-house expert in a larger architecture firm with a dedicated team or a single employee, or you could be a group of outside consultants. Despite the differences in roles and backgrounds, any individual who does energy modeling and analysis in their role are considered a part of BEM industry. But there are other broader uses of energy modeling, which includes policy development, standards development, and software development. The energy modeling can be research oriented to test some new technologies, develop some new tools. This would be something that CBE, PNNL, or LBNL would do. This may also be something that BEM professionals might consider. Now, various product manufacturers have their own in-house BEM specialists to test their new products and come up with detailed performance analysis. It could be the window manufacturers like View or Sage. There are also software companies who have in-house BEM specialists to test their softwares, debug it, research code, make software improvements, and investigate in different software features. The software-focused modelers may also engage in some public-facing tasks, such as providing training or resources on energy modeling software. So our very own Jayati is an architecture researcher in Cove Tool, so you can hit her up with any questions that you may have about that. The municipal and state governments, as well as utilities, employ the expertise of consulting firms and research institutions to develop energy policies and codes and standards. The energy modeling in support of research and policy development requires an advanced understanding of the building energy modeling. These are some of the lesser explored avenues that might be interesting for all of us to be aware of. Moving on, what are the job titles? Have you guys tried searching energy analyst jobs on LinkedIn and saw 2 relevant and 10 non-relevant jobs? Well, you're not alone. The range of BEM careers can make job seeking much more difficult for the emerging professionals, and these non-standardized titles just don't help. We have listed a couple of job titles, many among our industry which uses and customizes. Building performance consultant, building analyst, sustainability coordinator, building energy consultant are just a few commonly used ones. Feel free to take a screenshot and use this next time for your job search. And also, please let us know if you find any more of these. You can email us at ibpsa-usa. Now, most of the BEM professionals learn more on the job because of the roles and responsibilities which vary throughout the industry. But to help understand the basics and keep up with the new technologies, we have multiple resources available. ibpsa USA has various webinars on different topics available to watch on their website, along with other on-demand videos. Keep an eye out for BEMcyclopedia. It is currently under development, and the primary goal is to provide practical guidance to practitioners on how, when, and why to apply BEM at various steps in the design process, and how to use analysis to inform design decisions. Ask a Modeler is a monthly advice and discussion column in ibpsa USA newsletter, where you can ask any type of modeling questions and the experts will give you an answer. If you have not subscribed yet to the ibpsa USA newsletter, please do. It keeps you posted on different events and webinars, also any job opportunities. EPSI also has a Slack channel where you can ask questions to your peers and get response in real time. ASHRAE has multiple guides, on-demand videos, also technical portal, which gives member access to research papers. You can also buy ASHRAE guides and other textbooks in the bookstore. AIA also has a guidebook for how to integrate building performance simulation in the design workflow. RMI, CBE, and PNNL have developed multiple tools which help automate the modeling tasks. Definitely worth checking out if you haven't already. NRail and PG&E also organize free webinars on various different building performance topics to help understand new technologies, codes, etc. I hope I haven't overwhelmed you all with this information. Feel free to reach out, ask questions. We're all here to help each other out. Now, moving on to the exciting rapid fire round with the panelists. Back to you, Jayati. Let me stop sharing my screen.
Thank you, Purva. This was really informative and helpful. So panelists, do you have anything to add in the slides that were shown?
Yes, Fred. This is not necessarily for emerging professionals, but much further down the road. We're seeing a trend now, or I'm seeing a trend out in the marketplace where more and more firms, corporations are going to have chief sustainability consultants or chief sustainability officers. And a lot of those are being drawn from what I would call my peers. People have been doing this for more than 10 years. And so more long-term, but something to think about, that, you know, the knowledge you gain doing this job might have varied career paths. Thanks.
Right. Thank you.
I would also add, just on another note, in terms of resources, I didn't see any forums on there. So I'll put out that Unmet Hours is a fantastic forum for late nights when you're stuck on a problem and ready to throw in the towel. Highly recommend it.
Right.
True.
And even job postings, you'll see quite a few of them come through the Billing Sim and the eQuest listserv. It's not meant for that, but folks do end up promoting those. So that's also a good one to subscribe to.
Awesome. All right. So now let's just get some more information from our panelists. We will start with a rapid fire question where we will ask few questions to each panelist and they will be providing us some quick answers. If you want them to elaborate on anything, just ask a follow-up question in the chat and we will take it up again in the Q&A session at the end. So let's get started. And I will be starting with resume and interviews because that's like the basic question. So Fred, this is a question for you. When I'm creating like a resume, I'm thinking what to include and what not to. So what are the things an employer look at in a resume? What exactly makes a resume stand out?
I guess standing out, you know, the first introductory few sentences that say this is what you want to do, this is the career path you're taking. Historically, I've seen better success if you're writing a slightly customized resume per position you're approaching. You know, people might, well, not might, probably will send out multiple resumes. So tweaking them a little bit, I think is a good idea. One of the other things that I look for when reviewing a resume is, you know, we're all talking about modeling and experience related to that, is what software are you using? And something I really like, I only see maybe on a quarter of resumes, is how experienced are you with those software? You know, did you have one training class? Was it a semester-long class? Did you base your whole thesis on using this tool, and so on? And I think having some sort of matrix or something like that is pretty important. And then I guess I start going through the you know, project experiences, internships, things like that. You know, is your experience compatible or completely disconnected from what we're doing?
Right. So what I understood, like mentioning what you are doing as academic like pathway, what are you pursuing, and then telling about like not just listing out what all softwares you use, but telling more about where have you used them can be a pretty useful technique to do that.
Yes.
Awesome. So I will come back to resume, but I have some question about a question. So what are the best questions to ask from the interviewer at the end of an interview when given an opportunity?
So I guess the first thing I'll say is don't be afraid to ask questions. I think it's a little strange if you're at the end of the interview and you don't have any questions. And for me, it sets the tone for the person. Being comfortable asking questions. You know, the work we do in call it the real world or the corporate world is time is money, and you know, it's great to always want to figure things out and show that you're independent, but that might take you 10 times longer than just asking a question and getting the answer out. You know, I know people are trying to prove themselves, but being able to work in a team and deadline is pretty important. So I can't emphasize enough, ask questions, not just the interview, but again, it sets that tone. Questions about the interview is, what's the team dynamic like? Are you working on one project, 10 projects? Are you working by yourself? Are you working with a team? Are you supporting multiple teams? I think that's probably what I would look for, and trying to, because it's really not written in a job description always, like who am I reporting to on a day-to-day basis? What kind of specific tasks would I be doing? Things along those lines.
Right. So getting to know the company first before you get on an interview, and then asking questions about like specific process that they follow, all of those, right?
Yeah, especially the process items, because it's not something you find on a corporate website. It's like, we fill out these forms and use this procedure and so on. It's nobody posts that on their website, at least not that I'm aware of. At least we don't. But yeah, understanding like this is the type of information that you will be feeding people. This is the type of information we'll be feeding you. This is what the deadlines look like. Does your work include surprises, or is it very regimented? If you're in the consulting world, every day is a surprise. That's the nature of the beast here, whereas other positions are just, again, more regimented. You're going to work on this one task for the next 3 months.
Mm-hmm. I will note that deadline question. Okay, so another one, how to best answer the question, tell me about yourself?
That's a question I absolutely hate, but it's actually super important. So tell me about yourself is kind of, in my opinion, just too vague. The question I usually ask that's essentially the same thing, but is more focused on work, which is what motivates you? Why are you doing this, right? You have, I don't want to say infinite options, but just about infinite options these days on what you can do with your education. I mean, we saw a list earlier. These are all the great things you can do. Why have you chosen this path? What motivates you? What's interesting about this for you? And then try to maybe include some stories. Stories are a really effective way of telling people about yourself. What did you do? And then I guess one other thing, it's a little more difficult depending on where you are in your career. Demonstrate working in a team environment. Tell a story of how you worked with others. I think it's very important. Most of the big, interesting projects require you to coordinate with lots of people. That coordination is probably one of our biggest challenges as a whole industry. And so demonstrating that of, about yourself, how do you work with others?
Right. So not sticking to like, my name is Jayati and I have this degree and people stop there, right. But creating a story and telling more about what interests them and why they chose this company. Sure. All right. That was amazing. We will move on to our next panelist for now and come back to you if we have more time. So our next panelist is Ajit Naik. We have some great questions about credentials. So firstly, a very basic questions. In your opinion, what are the most valuable credentials in the current job market?
It's a great question. Honestly, in terms of building energy modeling specifically, there is only one credential that's currently certified, which is the ASHRAE BEMP certification. It's a certification that requires you either be a licensed engineer or architect and also have another 2 years of building energy modeling experience, or else if you're not licensed, having worked for at least 5 years in the industry, 2 years of which are dedicated to energy modeling. So when I look for specifically somebody who has energy modeling or building simulation experience, that's a great one. Outside of that, I think the best energy modelers are people who have a broad range of experience, somebody who understands something else about how buildings work too. So I really like to see BEMP certifications together with commissioning certifications like the ASHRAE BCXP certification or the BCXA CCP certification. Like to see third-party sustainability accredited professionals like lead APs, as well as well APs. And of course, it's always good to see licensed professionals like AIA licensed architects or PE holding engineers.
Right. And before we actually dive into like more BEMP questions, because when we started the group, we had so many questions about that. So attendees, if you have any question, feel free to drop them in the chat. Ajit will be probably like answering all of them today. But like moving away from what all is important, I want to ask, is there an appropriate time to give these exams? Or, when can they prove to be the most beneficial? And by time, I would mean the stage of one's career.
I would say that most of these certifications require you to have some real practical experience, right? For example, the BEMP has that 2 years of documented, work experience. Some of the commissioning certifications you have to provide, 3 actual projects that you worked on, as well as providing, a contact or a reference who can vouch for the type of work that you did. So in my view, a lot of these more technical certifications are good springboards to take you from an emerging professional to more of an established professional. So rather than something when you're fresh out of school trying to scramble them and add letters onto your name, I think it's more useful to demonstrate sort of a commitment and a depth of experience and sort of familiarity, not only with the type of work, but the nature of work, to demonstrate that you have that real world experience. So, 2 to 4 years into your career is a good time to start thinking about this.
Right, that's awesome. So are there some easy credentials that our emerging professionals can pursue when they are just starting out because they want something on their plate?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think there are lots of things. For example, I'm an engineer. So most states require you that you pass the FE, the Fundamentals of Engineering exam, which gets you an engineering and training certificate. Or a LEED, for example, splits up their certification into the LEED Accredited Professional as well as the LEED Green Associate. So there are certifications like those two, which are specifically targeted at emerging professionals, so they can kind of demonstrate their commitment or separate themselves from their peers maybe before they have that level of experience behind their belt yet.
Right. So LEED, AP, GA, FE, PE as well?
PE requires you to have some certain amount of experience. So I'd say that the LEED GA and the EIT, the FE, are 2 good ones for those with an engineering background.
Right. Got it. Amazing. So this is pretty helpful. And now there's like a fun as well as a serious question. Have credentials helped you in any way getting a promotion or a salary raise or benefited you in any way?
Absolutely, right? I mean, so for example, being a licensed engineer, right, like allows you to do things that you can't do for your employer without that licensure, right? So for example, you can't stamp drawings, you can't sign off on energy code compliance to building permit officials, and being the person to have that ability really makes a difference. You can point to that and sort of show your company, look, without me here, you would need to find somebody else to fill this role to really, put our money where our mouth is. So certainly becoming licensed has helped me with the career. I've had employers ask me to get certifications so that, that company can be better represented in the credentialing organization. And, that has helped me not only with my employer, but also, as Supriya has mentioned, to really network and come into my own and really kind of become part of the larger community, which I think is essential for growth in any career path.
All right. This was some useful information. So thank you, Ajit. We will move on to our next panelist, which is Supriya. So Supriya, now we will be talking about communication, presentation, and networking. Now, we have our resume prepared. We have our credential on those. But what is missing is how we communicate or network with the professionals before we actually get that interview. So according to you, how important is it to network when starting out in the industry?
I would say it's pretty important, but I am going to add the caveat that it's not like folks who have not networked have not been done well or been successful. So it definitely helps you, and I'll give you some concrete examples on how it does. So when you're starting out in the industry, you don't know folks, and it's and all of us have been there. You're that one person in the room who doesn't know anyone. You walk into the room, everybody's talking to each other, and you feel this impending doom on how do I go and start a conversation? Am I going to just be standing in a corner for that entire evening? And networking will give you that confidence of doing that. Of course, it's going to help you build relations, but what it's doing the most is giving you confidence about talking to people, and it's going to helping you hone your skills regarding talking to people. You're reading verbal cues on whether folks are really into what you're talking about, and you're also at the same time learning something new, which will help you in future conversations. it's a bit of a hurdle, a bit of a jump that you need to take as a new professional. But as you start doing this more and more, you learn things, you build relationships, you gain confidence, and you figure out how to do this better. So all of your future connections, all of those future meetings are not as challenging as the first one.
Yeah, I have experienced that on my own. Like when I just entered, I didn't know anyone. But actually, even joining ibpsa-usa, I went to conferences and I could meet some similar faces, and that just gave me confidence to talk to other people as well. So this is really an important point. So now when you are talking or presenting to these some really experienced professionals, um, what would you say are the most important communication or presentation skills an emerging professional should possess?
It's so when you're talking with people, one important thing is to also, there are two things you should pay attention to: listening, and then remember that you're not trying to impress the person with your knowledge. You cannot, within that 2-minute conversation, nobody is going to understand the scale of your knowledge and your capabilities. What you're trying to do is make an impression. And you can do that by just coming across as someone who's receptive to ideas, who can have an engaging conversation, and who can basically talk to you and make you feel heard as well. So one mistake that a lot of students do is go on as kind of a non-ending conversation or a non-ending speech about their own work, while not paying attention to how the other person is responding to it. And the other mistake that is usually done is, if you are trying to make an impression on someone, read up on them. Read up on the research they've done, on their skill set, on their capabilities. And then once you determine this is someone I want to speak to, then try and bring up those common areas of interest. So it has to be a back and forth conversation where that individual understands your interests and also knows that you know a little bit about the area that you're talking about.
Right. So being aware, but being aware of the reactions as well as the knowledge is important, and not just, bragging about. I knew you were just not using that word, but it's okay with us. Like, we are being honest here.
Yeah.
Do not brag about your work a lot. Show what you're capable of, but you will have more opportunities to do that. So creating a connection and maybe showing your personality is much more important than showing your work altogether.
Correct. Yes.
Right. So now you mentioned that do not go about talking on like about your own work. What are some of the great conversation starters you would say that, if I'm there in a conference, how do I start talking to them when you're just looking for a job to be
Right.
specified?
Right. It also depends upon the individual you're speaking with. So I'll speak from my experience, and hopefully you can apply that to other folks as well. So one thing that I did when I was a student and I was looking for a job, I made sure to not go to a conference and hang out with my own friends. If I hung out with my friends, I did not feel the need to talk to other people. So I specifically told my friends, you will ignore me during that conference so that I'm uncomfortable and I feel the need to talk to people. When you're talking to people, it helps if you've just attended a presentation they've given, because that can just be a conversation starter. Hey, I attended this presentation. I have also always wondered about this X, Y, and Z topic, and I thought that you addressed it really well. Or if you haven't attended a session that they have presented on, and this is just someone you don't know, you can go through and just, introduce yourself. This is what I do. And that person will also introduce themselves, and they would also just say what they talk about, what they do. Hopefully that'll show you something that you know something about, and you can then lead that conversation further. But if it does not, just ask them questions. Oh, that sounds really interesting. What does that usually require? Oh, that's where you live. I've always wondered about that city. It doesn't have to be work related. It can be anything that just gets a conversation going. Some of these conversations will not lead to anything. This is not going to result in a job, but it will help you get that experience of talking to folks you don't know and talking about topics you don't know much about. That's also really helpful.
Right. Yeah, that's actually useful. Um, so we have more questions about communication. So now we will start with you and go back to other panelists now. So what persuades or dissuades you from connecting with a student? Are you receptive to people connecting to ask about job openings or anything else on LinkedIn? Is that something you would prefer?
I'll start with the second question. I'm totally receptive to it. What turns me off when I receive a message on LinkedIn is someone just saying, hey, I'm looking for a job. Here is my resume. I would expect them to do some homework and say, provide some more context on the LinkedIn message. This is my expertise. This is the kind of a job I'm looking for. I know that PNNL does this kind of work and there has this kind of opening. Would you be open to talking to me about this? Or I know that PNNL does not have an opening, but would you be open to telling me about what this kind of job entails and making some connections for me? And I have received several such messages on LinkedIn. I also helped one such individual get a job at the lab. So it does work. You just need to make sure that you include enough context so folks know that you're not sending that same message to 10 different people and hoping that one of them replies. I have been the one who's reached out to folks on LinkedIn and I have not heard back from even one of them. So it can be challenging, but you'll figure things out. And once you have success, you'll know what you're doing right.
Right.
What persuades me from connecting with the students or dissuades me? I always try and make an effort to talk with students when I see them at a conference. When I see that that individual is responding and is interested in knowing more about some field of work, about some organization, and has some interesting questions or is at least open to listening to what I have to say, then I continue that conversation. And I have made great connections with students during such sessions when I just see that people are open to talking. What would dissuade me is someone, I wouldn't say I would take it as a negative thing, but I would just see that as an unwillingness or not a need to connect. Someone's just having fun with a group of friends and they don't seem to be looking to make connections or looking to learn something new, then I would probably just introduce myself and then move on and not try and see if there's something, a job or some other connection that I can help them with. So in the way you speak with folks at a conference would also give them a sense on whether you're looking to build connections, and they might just take you up on that if they see that openness.
Right. So actually, my next question was related to this one. Like, what are some of the do's and don'ts while approaching an experienced professional? But you have answered like some parts of it. Do you have anything else to just add or like list down, like these are the do's, these are the don'ts?
For the do's, if you are going with a job in mind or some specific thing in mind, then do read up about that individual. It's you can make an impression in 1 minute and then convince them to, or at least make them remember you. And that is going to help you, especially when you apply for a job and if that person is on the review committee for that job. So definitely read up about the work they do. And again, you're not showing off that you've read about them. So you just want to gently tell them, oh, yes, I read about that work that you did, and I found that very impressive. It really helped me in my thesis. But do not say, just go on a rant of what they have done to kind of show off that, hey, I've read up everything about you and you're the coolest person I know.
Yeah, this is funny, like not bragging about themselves, but you know, them.
Yes.
All right.
Don't tell
Yeah,
anybody their home address either. They don't know.
Oh, yes, that has happened to me as well. So,
all right. Okay. Thank you, Supriya. And we will move back to Ajit. And I see some questions coming up. But Ajit, I want to ask how to keep up with the credit hours, like lead. Are there any requirements for PE or BEMP as well? I'm not aware of that. So it would be great if you could like just show some light on that.
Okay, well, I heard two questions there for the PE as well as the BEMP. The PE, it depends. Some states have no PDH requirements whatsoever. And some states, I think like Texas has 15. Here in Illinois, where I am, there's 30 hours. I think New York has the most at 36 hours biannually. So it really depends for your PE. For the BEMP, there are 45 hours required biannually for you to renew your certification. And I would say the best way of keeping up with it is not thinking of it as like a requirement to renew your certification, but really as a commitment to continuing education, right? I mean, the thing that building energy modeling and building simulation is not a static field, right? This didn't exist in the same form as it does now 20 years ago, or even when I was in college 15 years ago. So I think it's really critical that if, you know, for you yourself as a professional want to remain at the top of your game and really making a difference in this, that you take continuing education seriously and integrate it as to part of your work. At least my employer makes it a point to, you know, make that space within our workload to have time for personal projects and continuing education. So I would encourage you to discuss that with your employers and understand, is there room for that? Of course, everybody has been in a situation at some point where you need to make up you know, some credits, or you need something in a hurry. I'll say that conference attendance is a great way of doing that. Usually there are, you know, many talks that are given in a single conference. It's easy to get a lot of continuing education credits, but at least for like the PE, state boards often give credit for other activities outside of just sitting at webinars and going to classes, things like, for example, teaching, right? If you're teaching a course or you're teaching a training seminar, you can get PDHs for that as well too. There are many different ways, but my biggest takeaway really is don't think of it as something that you just have to tick the box to renew your certification and get it. Take it seriously, because continuing education is critical.
That's a very important point. A lot of people just do it just to get the hours and not focus on what it actually means. It means to just update yourself, continue your education. So I see a number of questions, again, related to PE and BMP. So we will be taking them in the Q&A session at the end. So moving on to Fred with one last question, and so that we can move to our next section. Fred, I want to know two things here. One is how to customize the resume and cover letter according to the firm you are applying to. And second, what are the do's and don'ts for an interview?
Sure. I'll do the do's and don'ts first, because I think it's pretty quick and obvious. You know, it's general professionalism. I mean, you know, most of us are working towards a professional career, and that's what's expected. Be on time. I know that's goes again. This is obvious, but you know, it doesn't always happen. You know, be responsive with follow-ups. You know, if there's something that said, "Hey, I didn't," you know, they weren't able to fully answer. You weren't able to fully answer a question, or you mentioned, you know, an article you've written or something like that. You know, send that. The person may or may not, the interviewer may not read it, but they know that you're going to follow up. And again, it's just a way for you to show that you are responsive and detail oriented, because that's a lot of what this job is about. You know, and show that you're doing your homework. As far as customizing a resume and cover letter, and you know, again, there's the obvious stuff of you know, targeting a specific individual or individuals. You know, again, doing some homework there. The internet's a wonderful thing and a horrible place at the same time, but it does contain a lot of information. So, I mean, you know, I still use it to this day, where, you know, if I'm, you know, interviewing for a new project, so I'm not interviewing for a job, but I'm interviewing, you know, we're chasing a new building, and I know who's going to be there from the client side. I will go check out their LinkedIn page. I will do a general internet search, see if they've published things, you know what they like, know what they don't like, be aware of what the company's practices are, not just professionally, but also, you know, what kind of charities do they donate to, and so on. Just again, having general familiarity, and then, you know, crafting your letter and your resume around that a little bit. You know, there's generally, especially for an entry position, the general guidance is have 1 page of content. Well, if you've got a master's degree, you might have worked in between and do all these other activities outside of school. You might have a lot more content, so you might need to pick and choose what goes into that 1 page, and so it'll help you filter your best content of knowing, well, what does this audience care about?
Right. So getting them what is relevant to them.
Yeah.
Awesome. All
and
right.
That might not be
Seem
like sorry, one more thing. That might not seem like a lot of depth, but interviews aren't, they might be all day, but you're interviewing with one person for 30 minutes, maybe an hour. You don't need another life story to fill an hour, right? I mean, so don't feel like you won't have enough knowledge to fill 5 or 10 minutes of fill time. So.
Right. Okay. So with this, we will be ending our rapid fire question round, and we will be moving on to our discussion topic. So where all the 3 panelists can actually address and give their opinions and insights into this. So my question is about best advice on how to talk about salary to all of you.
That's a fun one.
That's why I put it there.
Yeah, this is the one thing that I'll point out, especially since I hire and support resume review for most of our 14, 15 offices. Different geographic regions have different salary ranges. So one place might offer you $100,000 and you'll be worse off than the other place that offers 50. There are websites to do cost of living comparisons, so keep that in mind when you're comparing places, because they are really not equal to one another.
Right. Do you all have any salary range? Like what is an entry-level modeling consultant salary?
Geez, I have to go look it up, but again, it'll vary across our system, and we have, I'd say, maybe our lower cost offices here, where I'm in Madison, Wisconsin, where the average home price is around $250,000, and I'm sure there's probably a few people on the phone who's like, well, the average home price here is $750,000. So that's a huge cost difference. So that's probably more in the mid, maybe 50 to 60, maybe 70. You start getting in urban coastal areas, LA and DC and so on. I wouldn't be surprised if it's 20, 30, 40% higher. I would argue still, though, that still might not make up for the purchasing power difference. So it's not a simple question, unfortunately, with a simple answer. But
yeah, we definitely know that, but we would still like a range. So Supriya, do you have anything? Because your work is different from what there is in like the industry. They are all consultants, but you are doing a research. You're like making the codes. And so what range can we expect there, for a researcher in this field?
So I am not a good person to answer this. I am not involved with salary discussions at all, but I can tell you from when I was hired. So that was 10 years ago. And of course, that is not relevant at all. So one thing that happens is as a foreign national, and also as someone who's getting a job in the US for the first time, A, I have no idea about what to expect. B, I don't even know the concept about the cost of living adjustments for different cities. I'm not privy to those kinds of discussions at all at that age. And then 3, I don't even know the concept of negotiating. So I took what I was offered. I thought that was a great salary. I did not negotiate. And most entry-level consultants will feel the same way. So my question to Fred is whether entry-level consultants should negotiate. But to answer Jayati's question, it is super dependent on where you are. When I was hired, my salary was, if I remember correctly, 55 or 60K, which again, for Eastern Washington, small town where the home prices might be about 200K, might be okay. I'm sure that's raised up to 70 or 75K in the Tri-Cities right now. But again, I am now in San Francisco, and I would be below the poverty line if I was to get a job at 60K for an entry-level job. So it is so dependent on where you are. You have to look at your expenses and see what you are okay with, and maybe also just go on Glassdoor or something to see what other kind of jobs are getting. It's very difficult to answer.
Right. And Ajit, when you answer the salary range, I also want to add this question. How should an emerging professional answer when asked, what are your salary expectations, and on what basis? Like Supriya mentioned, go to Glassdoor. Do you have any advice on that as well, along with the salary range that you have to give?
Okay, well, I'll tell you just straight up that like my first job in this industry, when I think was in 2012, I made $63,000 a year, right? So there's one price point that you can get right there. That's how much I made in Chicago, Illinois in 2012. So you can look up whatever the inflation rate is over the last 8 or 9 years since then, and you can figure out that's probably what the similar going rate is, at least here. I really can't help but underscore this enough that like we have an office in DC, right? And like we have, again, like different, Chicago is cheaper, right? Like the rent here, the house, it's more expensive than it is in Madison, Wisconsin, but it's a hell of a lot cheaper in DC. So what we can offer the same person with the same qualifications, like we have a budget for it, right? Like when we put out like a posting online, we already have like a number, right? And that number doesn't just include like the salary that person gets paid. It also includes their benefits. It includes the payroll tax. It includes all host of other things that we have to wrap in when we think about, can we afford to actually hire somebody here? So that's at least one point I can give you. And I would think, Fred's number is right there, maybe like in the still mid to high 60s, maybe in Chicago might be reasonable for an entry level. And when they ask you for your expectations, number one, like whenever somebody asks me that, I try to deflect it as much as possible at the beginning, because I can answer that question better if I have more data points, right? So like I always come back and say, before I can answer that question, can you tell me a little bit more about, what your expectations are, right? Do you expect me to be, is this a client-facing role, right? Am I going to be doing the work and feeding it to somebody else, or am I out there, having to negotiate with our clients and kind of navigate the entire process? When I can have an understanding of the kind of, responsibility and basically stress that's going to be expected of me, I can have a better idea of what to offer. I would also always say, offer a range, right, of what you want to get. Whatever you want, make that the bottom end of the range, because if you give a range, everybody knows that it's the minimum that's acceptable. And I would also say, give that range as a tight value, right? Like, don't be like, I'm willing to accept $50,000 to $75,000, right? That's like a 50% range. That's ridiculous, right? Like, keep your range, I would say, like $5,000 to $7,000 to kind of let people know that you're a little bit serious about it. And this isn't helpful right at the beginning, but cast a wide net, understand I go on Glassdoor and look at things too, but nothing is as useful in salary negotiations as a competing job offer, right? So that can also really help you know, not just generally what it is, but what it is specifically for you in that market for that kind of work.
To follow up
That's
on
some great
Supriya's,
insight. Yes, go on,
to follow up on
Fred.
Supriya's point. So there's a general saying, this is true for any time you're going for a job, the most negotiating power you have for your salary is before you have it. It's just, after you're settled in, you've signed a contract or agreed to the terms and conditions of your employment, that's that. And then there's, hopefully salary adjustments after that, but your starting point is that's where you have the most control. And then, just be aware of the world around you, right? It's it's a good economy right now. And, so salaries are going to be, for entry-level folks, would be higher. I started during or towards the end of the Great Recession, lucky to get a job, right? There's unemployment rate was way higher, right? And so that's just, the reality you have to work with. Also following up on Ajit's salary range point, yep, definitely got the bottom end of the range. So that's what everyone does. So yeah, make sure the bottom end is where you need to be.
Trust me, I didn't do that. And I wish Ajit would have, met me before and given me that advice. I was nice and, happy that, okay, this will work. So that's a very useful point there. All right, anything else on the salary negotiations before we actually move on to our Q&A session? Any resources that you would want to provide the emerging professionals? So
there are, I'm trying to remember what the organization is. Left to think about it. It's consulting, specifying engineer might be another, but they do surveys for salary ranges and publish those. I don't know that they'll have one for, energy modeling professionals specifically, but you can see what are other engineers getting, what are engineers with master's degrees getting, et cetera. So at least you don't start from a blank page.
Right, awesome. So now we have a bunch of questions in our chat and we have around 7 minutes left. So Apurva, do you want to read aloud the questions or ask the student to unmute them and read the question, ask the question themselves?
Yes. So Nupur has a question for Ajit. Nupur, do you want to go ahead and ask your question?
Definitely. I think I have Jayati already covered some part of it, but my question is that what is the standard process, preparation process for BEMP, and how long one should prepare after getting, after meeting all this requirement and after working on energy modeling for a while?
I mean, the strict requirement is 2 years, right? They say you have to have at least 2 years of energy modeling experience to take the BEMP. I would say that there are practice exams out there that you can take to at least give yourself a feeling of if you're comfortable. But just when it comes to standardized exams, I think everybody's different. How you study, how you absorb the material varies from person to person. Some people will need to sit there for 300 hours and go through everything. Some people might be, just try it to see how it works out. I would say the one thing that with the BEMP in particular that's been a little bit difficult is there is no study guide or like formalized kind of material for it. As it happens, ASHRAE is putting that together. I'm actually serving as a lead contributor on that committee, and I think that's going to the publisher this week for cleanup. So hopefully sometime in the next few weeks or a couple of months, there will be actually a study guide for the BEMP, which should help breed some of that confidence, at least going through it before you sit down for the exam. And sorry, I can't give you a specific answer, but I hope that helps.
This was super helpful. Thank you, Ajay.
So Kate has 2 questions. Kate, do you want to go ahead and ask your questions?
Sure, I'll say them both at the same time. I'm curious which PE you think is the most valuable in our field. And then also, if I end up in some sort of situation where I have multiple offers, would I tell one employer the exact number that I got from another potential employer, or would I be like more vague?
I'll take the PE one. Not sure this is like the really honest answer that I should be giving emerging simulation professionals, but it doesn't matter what PE exam you take. It doesn't say like you are a PE of mechanical engineering or a PE of electrical engineering. And I'll be dead honest with you. Like I took the general PE because I had heard it was the easiest, right? Like honestly, that's why I did it, right? Because if it doesn't matter in the end, that was my logic here. But I would encourage you to do whichever one is whichever is most relevant to what you do. And sorry, I took the HVAC one. And at that point, I was living and breathing. I was working as an HVAC design engineer at that point, so I was doing that day in, day out as my daily bread. So when I got there and sat down, I had studied, and I almost thought like, oh wow, this is easier than I thought, but not because of all the studying, just because that's what I had been doing, to try to get the projects out and get it to work. So I would say look at the questions, see what's there, and then take whichever one you feel is the most comfortable for you and that, kind of suits the type of work that you're doing. And for your question about the negotiating salaries, I mean, nobody's going to know exactly what you offered beyond, how they talk about it. I would encourage you not to be dishonest when you, negotiate with people, but there is no reason that you should always show every single one of your cards to somebody who you're negotiating with. And there's probably a gray area in between when you can use things to your own advantage.
Right. Fred and Supriya, do you have anything to add there for the negotiating part? Like, should we tell the exact price, exact salary we are getting?
I don't know if you need to tell the exact number. I'm going to go back to what we said before. They're going to get all those follow-up questions. It's like, okay, you're getting that number, but where, right? Where is that? If you're getting 20% more in a city that costs twice as much, I'm going to be like, okay, that's, I'm not going to compete with them dollar-wise, but I don't have to either. There's all sorts of reasons. I know this is a big deal. Obviously, money is a big deal, but it's really not the only thing, right? And I know it's a little bit of a cliche too, but obviously it has to be right to a certain amount. You have to be able to live there and not, be paycheck to paycheck starving. But there are other aspects, where you're located, is it near family? Is it near your hobbies? And so on. A lot of folks I know who live on the West Coast live there because they're diehard ski bums. And that's, where they want to be near the mountains, but they also like surfing, right? And so they need that combination of things, and they're willing to, that's part of their compensation package, as it were. Whereas I look at it as, well, if I want to go skiing, I can save my money here and pay for a nice vacation. Dealer's choice. You have to know what's best for you. All right. But yeah, if you want to play hardball, go nuts. But just be prepared for the other person to walk away.
And that, I feel, is a fine balance. What are you going to do if they walk away? Are you still going to accept the offer they previously offered you? Does that kind of make you feel in a way that you're getting a bad deal? And how does that come across to the other organization? So also be kind of just think through what's going to happen if they don't take you up, and if they also don't decide to meet you middle ground, like part ways. So those are some things, like I would not like that if I tried to do something and the organization completely rejected it. So anyway, just see how you want to deal with that part also.
Also, don't forget, it's not just salary, right? I would point out that looking at your medical benefits, looking at your paid time off, looking at any type of investment in continuing education, like will they pay for you part-time to go back and get a second degree, all of these things and what they can do for you and yourself and what you have planned for your career is critical. I mean, I've rejected jobs that offer me more money because it would be an extra 30-minute commute, right? And I really don't want to sit in the car for an hour a day, and I don't want to move. So think of things like this that are related to your compensation, but not directly salary related when you consider your negotiations.
So I have a question regarding that. We are talking about new jobs, right? So if somebody is in their current job and they are interviewing elsewhere and want to use that salary as a potential for a promotion or a raise, do you think that somehow shows negatively about the person, or the manager would probably get pissed off that you're doing this? Or what do you think emerging professionals should do for this?
If somebody comes to me like clockwork the 1st of April every year and says I have a new job offer from a different person and tries to beat me over the head with it, that'll probably leave a bad taste in my mouth. But if somebody legitimately can say that, my work here is undervalued, here's what I've been contributing to the company, and here's what the market values me at otherwise, then as an employer, I better take that seriously.
Thank you, Ajit. So we have 2 more questions, but Supriya will have to drop off. So thank you, Supriya, for being with us. Ajit and Fred, do you have 2 to 3 more minutes to answer the questions? Awesome. Thank you, Supriya.
Bye.
Yep.
All right. Apurva, can we take 2 questions from Hilya and Ayush?
Yes. So Ayush, do you want to go ahead and ask your question?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. Before my question, I just wanted to highlight the point that Supriya made. Since I'm being an international student, networking is really difficult, especially during this point of pandemic time where the meetings and gatherings have been less. And I find it very difficult to connect with people through Zoom because then I don't get respond. And that's very heartbreaking for me. The question that I got is like when I'm applying for internships or jobs, they ask us that whether do we require sponsorship for a visa. But since I'm being a student on F1 visa, I have work authorization for 3 years. So does that makes an impact while they select the candidate, that whether we require sponsorship or we don't require a sponsorship?
I can go. I want to say it's a factor we're aware of. It's not going to stop me from hiring the right person, right? If somebody's really good, this is the person with the exact skill set, I'll get them from anywhere. I mean, I don't care if they're from this planet, really. There's a shortage of skilled technical people globally. So if you know how to do this job, we'll make it work. There is a cost to the employer for sure, and it's not trivial, but again, we've done it a bunch of times. I don't know how many forms related to that I've filled out. If the employer you're considering is making a big fuss out of that, you don't want to work there long term anyway.
I would agree with that, and I would say just attend any ibpsa-usa conference and just look at the makeup of the people attending it. And clearly, our industry does not have a problem bringing people who require sponsorship, because that's just a huge. I mean, the local talent in this country doesn't exist, right? Like there isn't enough people born and raised in this country who are citizens who don't require sponsorship available to take these jobs. And the work needs to get done right now. So. No, it's not a barrier to entry.
So is that like a yes if you need sponsorship later than 3 years? Because 3 years is OPT, we are allowed to work. So should we say, yes, we need sponsorship because we will need it after 3 years?
I mean, if it says that you will need sponsorship now or in the future, yeah, I would say yes. You can describe it in your cover letter that, hey, I just graduated. I don't need anything for the next 3 years. And honestly, if you work somewhere for 3 years, that's more than enough time to demonstrate your worth. And most likely by that time, if you're good, people will be scrambling to figure out, how do we not lose this person? It'll be the opposite problem that you'll have.
Awesome. So I guess we have answered most of the questions. We can take rest of the questions to our email. So if you have any questions left, please email us at epsi@ibpsa.us, and we will get you your answers from these amazing panelists. So now I just thank you all for attending the session, and to the panelists for getting all their questions answered and for giving us some very, very amazing information. Thank you all.
Thank you.